So, so welcome, brothers Fleminsky, or however you want to be called. It's a
Minsky
pleasure to
brothers,
have
right.
you on board. Um, Two people that don't need too much introduction, really, but an old acquaintance of Scrum Wednesdays. Roland, a professional Scrum trainer. Also, Alexei here, the certified Scrum trainer, so best of both worlds, org and
Yes.
alliance, however you feel like. Both of them, I would say, also a bit less friendly than you would expect, but that's a good thing in this world. And yeah, something that they have created, a brainchild of theirs called Org Topologies. So folks, welcome. Thanks for sharing, and the stage is yours.
Thank you. Yeah, so as we say, we go to the different churches, but we pray to the same God. So we both are Scrum trainers. We are not too dogmatic about Scrum, and we go beyond Scrum, and Org Topologies is actually a walk beyond Scrum, or maybe embracing the Scrum for the entire product company. You guys going to see that. So yeah, Roland.
Yeah. What was I gonna? Yeah, embracing the Scrum. That's actually, and we didn't talk about this too much, but that's an interesting approach. Often when I talk to people who hear about org topologies for the first time, or they read about it and then they come back to me and they give some feedback on what they've read, is many people say like, "Oh, I've been thinking about this concept for years already." And they go like, "Okay, but it wasn't there, wasn't it?" And no, but you know, and I worked with it, but you guys kind of put it all together. So what we are about to share with you is thought work that we did over the past 2 years of trying to make sense of what's happening in the Agile world regarding to, you know, building product development organizations. And you probably thought about this yourself, but we think this is Colombian egg. I don't know if you know what that is. Het ei van Columbus, we say in Dutch. It's like, you know, this thing that it's like, yeah, of course, it was there already, but I didn't see it. So we hope that it will bring that spark, that energy, because that's what we're trying to achieve, to enable you to use what we've created in your daily work and improve your life at the office.
And this slide has this talk has two titles. The one which is on the slide, designing agile ecosystems, because we believe that's a fancy name that attracts people. Ooh, ecosystem. But the real name is basically thoughtful org development. Our mission is to help companies and you guys and ourselves to be more thoughtful about the direction of organizational development. We are consultants and coaches, scrum masters, and we talk to different companies and managers and teams. And our experience is that, well, if you ask people to, hey, can you describe me your company in 5 years? How are you gonna look like when you grow up? People are really puzzled. They know the impediments, they know like what to fix now, but they don't have this long-lasting vision. So this is an attempt to provide a vision. It's not the vision, it will not work for everybody, but provide one type of vision that maybe some companies would be appreciative to have. We're going to start with a little story. You might know the healthcare.gov project, also known as Obamacare, that Trump and his team was putting some efforts to kill. In America, it's a known story. What's not known about that project is that there were two attempts actually to implement it. And the first attempt just was a complete disaster. The thing just didn't work. There were thousands of people involved in this development, in this project. Most of the people were from vendors and they were component specialists. So there were a lot of component and single specialization work going on. And because there were too many dependencies, you know, when people focus too little on some nitty-gritty parts, not on the whole, of course, there will be a lot of dependencies. And there were, of course, a lot of consulting happening, a lot of agile coaching, a lot of agile buzzwords spread on top, but eventually it didn't help. And login feature, for example, eventually costed 250 million in development. And you can, it's a known case. You can Google it up and you can read actually analysis of this failed project. What is not known is actually there was a second attempt. And the second attempt, they actually fired everybody, and they just ran a house in Maryland, found the 10 best developers, and no Agile, no buzzwords, no story points, no nothing, no project management. They were able to launch that product. And it was way, way cheaper and way, way more efficient. Well, you can say, well, it's a magic, right? How this is possible, but actually there was some significant changes in how these two attempts were run. Anybody wants to give a try and name the key difference between these two approaches? If somebody wants to speak up or put it in chat.
Oh, hey, Alexei, I'm thirsty too. Can I have a drink?
Oh yeah, please. Other side, right?
Ah, oh.
I will say something like simplicity.
Yes, of course, but simplicity, well, it's still a complex project, right? There's still a lot of things to do. So simplicity in which regard? What has created that simplicity of management? People put in chat, the chat says team self-organization. Yeah, all of this, simplicity, team self-organization. Maybe you guys have more things to say, more focus. Yeah, but the key difference is the structural difference, right? What else people put?
Less people.
Less people, yes. Well, yes, but not just less people, not just less component people. Less people, but more different kind of people, right? So this is an example that Craig Larman uses in opening of his less trainings. Basically, his claim is that if you use full stack developers, multi-component developers that can actually grasp the wholeness of that, who can have end-to-end responsibility, you actually need 10x or sometimes 100x less people, because every time you have component and narrow specializing people, there will be a lot of more developers needed because of all those small focus and dependencies they have. So the idea is to actually, well, and we know, right, that's not a secret. That's what a Scrum is offering, right? And I'm mentioning Scrum because it's a Scrum meetup. That's what Scrum is suggesting and promising, that if you create a wonderful team, right, which will have end-to-end responsibility, it will beat any large department, because they can actually do the whole thing together. They will not be waiting between them. There will not be handoffs. You don't need any managers. People can just talk to each other and solve all the problems.
I think you kind of introduced another thing here, and that is that the concept of these people working closely together, understanding the problem they need to solve as a whole, because there's very short communication lines, and the bigger setup with many people just focusing on a small part, that's an essential thing. That difference is key. Also, what you kind of suggest is, if you look at that bigger system, I use the word, it's a system, okay?
Right.
All these elements working together, trying to deliver value, is a complex system. And I think many people in current organizations that try to develop software with many teams are forgetting that concept, that actually they're working in a complex system. So they need to think systemically. They focus on the teams, they focus on the parts. Right.
Yeah, so you can make this, thought experiment. Imagine you would like to have the best car developed, and you go, you find a vendor, who can create the best engine, and you order an engine from them. Then you go and pick another vendor for the, interior of the car, and then another vendor for the wheels and for the chassis, and you go and you pick the best vendors ever in the world, and you pick those 20-30 vendors who would actually contribute with the best engineering. Do you think that car in the end will run? Likely not. So focus on the part is fine, but actually there's a almost 100% probability that the whole system will not well run, because the system, as Roland has just said, it's not just the parts, it's also the interaction between the parts, right? And well, and the more interaction is important, the more, of course, focus should be on those interactions. And with the complex work that we do with the software development, with the product development, of course, there are a lot of things going between the developers, between the teams, between the interfaces, between the layers of architecture. So if we focus just on the parts, well, we're going to have a failed project with, and no matter how many managers are trying to save it. And we know that you know it, but we need to lay some ground here. So this org design, and we're going to use this word in the talk, this org design, where we focus too much on the parts, you can call it a pre-agile org design. Most of you been there, most of you seen companies like that, most of you have tried maybe to help company upgrade that org design. In this pre-agile org design, there's a lot of focus on individual workers. And well, if you have a backend developer, your goal as a manager is to give that developer, backend work. So the work follows people here in this example. And in the end, it's too much focus on the parts, too little focus on interaction. And the picture on the right is called a dependency. We typically say dependency, but actually, if you go and study dependencies, you will learn that there are different kinds of dependency. And this kind of dependency, which is on the picture, it is called reciprocal dependency, right? Reciprocal means I need you, you need me. If Roland, a QA person, and I'm a developer, well, I need Roland to test my code, but Roland eventually needs me to fix that code. So we need each other almost on daily basis. That's why between us is a very bad, strong dependency.
Yeah, and so this is a nice example of developers or people doing the code part and then people doing the test part. We need each other so often to be able to ship something of a little bit of value that it really doesn't make sense to keep us separated from each other.
Right.
But then again, there are so many organizations. I was talking to a customer today, and they have the QAs separated from the developers. It just grew like that historically, I don't know, or without thinking about why we do things the way we do. But it's just not a sensible choice when you need each other so often to not, collaborate together and try to deliver that value together.
Yeah. And because it's a Scrum meetup, we all know that the solution to this, right? So how do we improve such system? Well, we just put those guys in one team, right? We call it a cross-functional team. And hey, we contain those bad, strong dependencies. And now magic happens. A developer and QA can be seen working at one computer. Can you imagine that? Developing and testing the same feature at the same time. So they don't have any dependencies anymore. They just have this feature they need to work on together. So once you contain the dependencies, put people essentially in one room, dependencies are gone.
But that's important.
Start sharing work.
Although we all know this concept, it's important to be aware of this. We need to contain reciprocal dependencies within the team or within the group, because if you look at the problems that your current teams that you're working with have, and you look at their product backlog, and you look at the work they need to do, and then you start to analyze which other teams do we need to finish those product backlog items actually on a per sprint basis. There's these 3 teams that we need most of the time. Those are reciprocal dependencies, people.
Yeah. But we're going to go to inter-team dependencies. Now let's focus just on creating a well-run team. And well, now we don't focus on the parts anymore. Now we have a car, right? Now a product owner has a team, which is a well-running car, and this car can take the product owner, product manager, stakeholder to a great, spot, a great location. So this is the second example. We call it a team-based org design. You can call it an agile-friendly org design, but you can call it a Scrum org design, right? We all understand what we mean. It's a creation of cross-functional teams. We contain those bad dependencies. And now we have those teams. And if we have multiple teams, if we work at scale, probably your teams are different. One team is good at, it's a family car. One car is more of a lorry. One car, it's a bus of some sort. So work will now not follow the workers. Work will follow the teams. And now the managers will look at the work, maybe the goals, the objectives in a company backlog, and look at the work. They can decide which team will be doing this work. Okay, if you need to, build something in the search, well, the work goes to the search team. If you need to build some features in an iOS app, well, guess what? This work will go to the iOS app. And this is much more efficient than to manage individuals. Now you kind of have these units which can actually do things end to end. And we know that you understand this because it's a Scrum meetup. So you have this team which actually shares the work, can sit at one table, can share a Zoom call, can do more programming, and it's a tremendous improvement to the development system, which can be visualized like this one. We went from pre-Agile org design, too much focus on the parts, too much focus on the individuals, now on well-running Scrum teams.
And then that well-running Scrum team actually has emergent capabilities. They can solve more complex problems. It can drive, in the case of a car, instead of the separate parts. The parts can't drive, but the car can.
So that's essentially the end of a story. We save you an hour of the meetup. We are done, right? There's no more improvements possible. Well, if there's only one car in an office, in a company, probably that's it. But if you work at scale, right? If you need more than just 7 plus minus people, then you still have probably some unsolved dependencies. Well, what you can think, right? You have a car and now you're autonomous. You can go wherever you want. And we, with Roland, we just spent, was it this week or last week? Last week, we spent 3 days learning about the Spotify and the product development at Spotify, and the word autonomy and autonomous teams, squads, has been mentioned like maybe 157 times. Like they put a lot of attention on the autonomy, and it's great, right? Because if you have a car, well, you can just drive whenever you want. Can you?
Yeah, but there's a problem here.
In theory, you can. In theory, you can. But maybe if you look around, you see some other cars, right? And maybe you can autonomously listen to whatever station on the radio in the car. Yes, but driving actually and doing what is important for you to do can be challenging if there are more cars. And traffic jam here is essentially maybe a metaphor.
Sure, but
what happens in some companies, right?
Alexei, we've improved, right? We came from a situation where we weren't even able to make a car, and now we're in a situation that we have too much cars going around. Well, this is a better problem to have, isn't it?
Yeah, so it's a progress, and this is a progress that we all have been contributing to as Scrum Masters, right? Agile friendly people. All of you were able to, build great teams, I'm sure. And this is the illustration of what is known as now Org Topologies, right? So Org Topologies is actually this play field, these 16 boxes, where you can map different organizational designs and you can compare them. So in the lowest left corner, you typically have individuals or groups of people who are given tasks to do, who don't really understand customer problems, bigger problems. They are given tasks. Like example would be, well, if you have a backend developer, well, somebody will talk to customer, break down those user stories into tasks and give that guy some backend tasks, because that's the fastest way to do the features, right? Well, from the management belief. So on this map, again, on the lowest level, there will be these pre-agile work units, you can call them, who need a lot of managers, a lot of support to do something. The team-based org design, it goes a little bit up and a little bit to the right. If you go to the right, which means you put skills together, and the work unit which you are creating, maybe a team, right? It's a work unit that has just more than one skill. It's a multi-skill unit. It's a cross-functional unit. It's a unit that stays together for a lot of time, and they work and they acquire more and more skills. That's why you actually make this move on the right. Team-based org design number 2 is also above the previous org design, which means, and the vertical axis, as you can read, is called scope of work, which means if you have a cross-functional team, you don't need to give them tasks anymore. Well, you can do this if you are a micromanaging guru, but you don't need to do this, right? You can just give a team a feature request or even a customer with a problem, and they will be able, hopefully, to solve that problem, implement that feature end to end without manager even knowing who was working on what. So you don't need to micromanage a team. And now as a manager, well, what do? Well, you'd better know which problems the teams should be solving, which customers the teams should be talking to. So your job now is to prioritize the problems. Essentially, the product owner in Scrum appears on this picture now, which decides where the car drives. So that's the org topologies and how you can compare different org designs. Now going back, Roland, please.
Oh, I don't know if you want to go back. You have to go back. I wanted to go forward.
I don't want to go back.
Oh, okay.
I just want to go forward.
Well, I think we'll recognize this moving, creating teams, agile teams that are maybe not complete, as in they cannot deliver end to end. But still, we, in our jobs as coaches or scrum masters, we were moving people to become teams. And then after that, we try to make these teams more complete, as in, in Scrum terms, to increase their definition of done, to be able to have more capabilities so they can become faster. And that focus on the lower part of the Org Topologies map is actually what we call the focus of the first wave of Agile. So the Agile revolution is here. Wow, let's go Agile. We started to create teams, and we focused on, at the team level, actually, to try to improve those teams. So our thing is that we think that in general, the up until now, most companies have been focusing too much on improving at the team level instead of looking at the whole system.
Yes, and you can see there's a blank part on top of the map that is still need to be discovered, and we're gonna help you guys understand, hopefully till the end of time box, what might be there. And now a little side track. So this is Org Topologies map. It actually offers now a shared language. If you study the map a little bit, go to the website, download the free PDF, you can quickly start sharing this language. So now maybe Roland calls me and say, hey, I have this client, they are A2, and they would like to go to B3. Actually, I understand what he means more or less by that. I actually understand it way better than if he would just said, oh, they're doing a safe transformation, or they do team topologies, because that really doesn't communicate me what kind of teams they have, what kind of dependencies they have, what kind of problems they have. But every box on the map, we figured it has a certain optimizing goal, it has certain problems it creates, it has certain problems it solves. So we figured these 16 different archetypes, as we call them, more or less enough to describe typically any team, any work unit in any organization. And we spent quite a while, quite some time together, remembering all the clients, all the teams, all the companies we had with Roland, and trying to actually map them and see if we're missing any archetypes. And now we have a community of people who actually do this with us. You can join our Slack community and actually use this Org Topologies idea. So the idea is just to create a better language that we all can share to communicate org designs.
Yeah, and it's also a story with an open end. And what I try to say with that is, When we started, we didn't have a 4x4. We didn't see all these different archetypes. We had a more limited set. And we saw it as the periodic table, of Mendeleev. And we were able to discover new forms, or people talked about an organization, and we went like, actually, we can't map that yet. So what do we need to change and improve here? For now, it's the 4x4 that we see, and I'm sure that if you download the primer, as we call it, or if you look at our website and you try to figure out if you recognize these archetypes, these boxes, we think you will. They're pretty common, actually.
Yeah. So the lowest level we call Y level, and you can call it like a Y level organization, where a lot of people who do work will be at Y level, like backend teams, front-end teams, QA groups, and well, you can map them as single functional units, like maybe Y1. And this is an example how you can map not just individual teams or groups, but you can map the entire what we call ecosystem. Because Y1 group, for example, or 3-1 Y groups, they will not be able to deliver value, will not be able to understand value because they are focusing on the tasks. So typically those groups, those teams need some other people, like maybe they need a business analyst, which who will be a single skill individual working at a higher level, understanding the feature. And then maybe there will be also group of product managers trying to create a product strategy. So the Org Topologies mapping is not just to map a single team. No, we actually encourage you to map your whole ecosystem, maybe all the teams within a part of a company, if the company is too big, and then see the connections.
And more than that, once you plot the current situation, you can maybe think about possible scenarios of better situations that you would like to achieve, better designs that you would like to implement, and you can start sketching your future design. And the map comparing A to B, the first with this one, you can think about, wow, what needs to change, right? Well, we need to talk to those single skill individuals, those analysts, because if we start to create a team that is more autonomous at the feature level, that capability will be in the team. So there will be a change here that we need to take care of and think about.
Like today I was teaching a CSM class and people ask me like, so where is the place of business analysts in a Scrum ecosystem? And I'm like, as long as you keep the analyst outside of the team will not be doing analysis. Because why do I have to do analysis? As a developer, we have a business analyst. So the only way to actually create a better team, more cross-functional, is to embed that analyst into a team. And on the map, you can mark it as a move, like on this picture from A2 to A3. So you can do a lot of different things with this map, and we have lots of blog posts where we analyze like all the frameworks and write case studies about the clients. A call to action, like if you think there is some potential for you to do this, go to the website, download the PDF, print it, and or maybe you can also have a mirror template now and try to actually put the dots and learn the language. And we actually learned that people get a lot of value when they get together with the team or with the managers and really try to map, okay, which teams we have now. Okay, we have these teams. Oh, and which teams actually do we want to have in 5 years? Oh, so this is the transformation we need to do. So actually, we believe that creates a better clarity on what really transformation is.
Yes.
A lot of companies say we're in an agile transformation. Excuse me, what does that mean? Because agile is not well defined, but what do you actually mean by agile? So this map, it helps to help you define your transformation and what you mean by change, org change, or agile.
I've been using this to the map to show to teams as a Scrum Master, to pinpoint and to address and identify more clearly what kind of problems we have with the team. And by plotting the team on the map and the remainder elements that form together the ecosystem, the team really understands why they are in the position that they are in. And they also understand what it takes to be able to improve their situation. Because mind you, this map is not only about the boxes. This map is maybe even more about the lines between the boxes. Because if you want to cross one of those lines, going from Y1 to Y2 or from A1 to A2, you're crossing a line. And it's not like negative, but it means there's some serious mental model changes going on when you go towards A2. A2 means you really believe that putting people together from different skills will create a team that has larger brain capacity, as a team that will have.
Right.
If you don't believe that, then you will be stuck in the one row, one vertical.
Right. And going from A2 to A3, it's another paradigm shift, another chasm that you need to cross. In A2, you do have a cross-functional team, and you might want to reassemble the team. After every project is done, you just put new bunch of functions together, and you have a A2 cross-functional team. A3, it's a multi-learning unit. That means that you allow those people to stay together and learn from each other. And A3 will be a team which actually follows the work. Not the work follows the team, but the team actually stays together and learns from each other. And at a A3 team, typically the boundaries between backend, front end, QA are kind of evaporating. And you have a more cross-functional individuals now working better as a team. And we all know that this because for most of us, going from like bad teams or non-teams to A2, A3, it has been a full-time job as Scrum Masters. And I've been there in several companies, been a full-time Scrum Master for iOS teams, Android teams. Now going back to our storyline. Okay, yay, we have teams, they're autonomous, but wait a minute. There's a huge traffic jam and we cannot drive those teams too fast. So how autonomous are your teams really? I've been working with a large German company recently, and they say, hey, our teams are autonomous. And I'm like, yeah, can you draw these teams in Miro? And they did it. And can you connect, draw dependencies between the teams? And if the dependencies are really bad, can you make them bold and red in Miro? I cannot show that picture because it's a private picture of the company, but you could understand what happens. You have a lot of lines, a lot of blocking between the teams. And funnily enough, they still call those teams autonomous teams. But they are not really autonomous. They can only listen to the radio autonomously. They can maybe refactor the component autonomously, but they cannot deliver on something bigger than a small change. They cannot create together a customer journey. They cannot together contribute to a high-level business objective like increasing customer retention. Somebody will need to actually create a project, and put different small tasks in every team's backlog. And in A2, A3 level companies, which is this one, you typically have a lot of dependencies between the teams. And even if you do Agile, you still have a lot of project and a lot of project management going on, because that's essentially the only way how to manage those cross-team dependencies. And then things will be slow in the company. Maybe 10 teams will be not enough because they will be all slowed down by the dependencies. So you raise some investment and you hire 3 times more teams. Now what you're gonna get? Do you get 3x output? Will you get 3 times more impact? Likely not. You'll get 3 times x of costs for sure, and you'll get a 3 times x of dependencies and managers needed to manage those teams. So that's essentially where we see with Roland, where our industry got stuck. We talk a little bit too much of autonomy of the teams, and we don't consider actually them being still parts of the whole, right? So those Agile teams, they are still part of the whole, and we are not managing the whole. Yeah, you can also say like we are spreading investments to thing, because with this org design, you have a lot of so-called Agile teams, right? In quotes, if they do Scrum, for example, and what's going to happen? Well, every team has a backlog, and a product owner. There'll be a search team with a search backlog and a search product owner, IS team with the, you know how this works? And then everybody is busy and everybody is actually working. But from the viewpoint of investments, you spend a lot of money, you know, but the impact is not there as a stakeholder. And then you hire more teams and actually have more costs.
Yeah, so that's it. By
And-
consequence, people really look at the costs because there is no real clear value being delivered as cause and effect. And that's why, you know, you're getting driven to measure teams to see how much they cost, because I would understand management is worried because they don't see the value being delivered fast enough. It just takes a lot of money. I can't blame
Right.
them.
Yeah, and these agile teams becomes basically cost centers because they're super slow and super expensive.
Yeah.
And there's one terminology we found which is actually describing this. So this is actually known as a horizontal scaling. So if you need to, you know, grow your company, one way is to just create new teams, spawn new teams, assign them a product owner, make them, you know, give them a special narrow focused, like a search or growth or iOS, whatever. And this is how a lot of companies grow. I, 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 I work with companies now which have like 60, 90 teams. And next year they say we're gonna probably double the number of teams. I'm like, okay, like, is it really helping you to go faster? And they have a lot of dependencies, right? And you know where this picture is coming from. And the question is, can the block and inter-team dependencies be solved with more meetings and wider dependency tracking boards? Some people believe, okay, we now just need to gather people once a quarter to identify all the dependencies, have more meetings, PI plannings, whatever, hire more managers, release train engineers, whatever we call them, to manage those dependencies. Maybe it helps a little, but it's not going to change that paradigm. There still will be traffic jams in the company. A little shameful plug, we are having a launching.
Shameless, not shameful.
Shame what?
Shameless.
Shameless, shameful, I don't know, whatever. We are having a video course that is launched last week. It's essentially 3 hours of videos on this topic. We actually currently, what you're learning in this 45 minutes is like a 10% of this course. We have much more information on how you actually go beyond those low-level archetypes and how you use Org Topologies. And we will be happy to see you in the program. It's a lot of fun. And this is a 50% discount for you if you use this QR code and you type Scrum_Sirdom in the promo code field. Please make a screenshot if you would like to learn more, but there will be more. We're still going to give you more now because this is how we operate. We want to give you the maximum in the remaining 45 minutes that we have.
Yeah, let's move up. Let's move up to those uncharted areas on the map, the empty parts, the higher archetypes. So now that we have these fast agile teams or some agile teams that are maybe having a lot of dependencies still on each other, what is above? You know, people ask like, okay, so what does the rest of the map mean? Now, actually, there's a couple of questions. Maybe you can imagine what it looks like when you go higher up. And I already saw a question coming from Olivier, and I saw in private to me, but I think it's a relevant question for everybody. What would happen to product management if you move up? Does it mean that, well, as the teams kind of get more knowledgeable and grow to become bigger units, they will absorb a bigger scope of work? So that kind of, you know, insinuates or means that there's probably less people needed to be working at that product level, because they don't need to decompose the work anymore. As the teams grow up, they go closer to the customer problem.
Yeah. So one big difference, and we're gonna give you some ideas of what those what we call high level archetypes might be and how they're different. You know, if you are at a low level archetype, as Roland has just said, A2, Y2, Y1, A3 maybe, you work on your little thing which you own. And if we go to an iOS team in a company and you ask, what is the product you're working on? They likely tell you, well, it's this iOS app, which is a product. But then if you go to talk to the customer outside of the building and you ask them, so what is the product of the company? I see you have an iOS app of that company. So how do you describe a product? They will not typically tell you an iOS app is a product. You know, you'll have apps from your bank, right, on your phone to, you know, wire some money and check your bank account statements. You don't consider that app as a product, right? The whole banking experience, private banking, is a product, and you would want to maybe start wiring money on the phone and then maybe go then to your desktop and download a PDF confirmation and then actually open up your app again tomorrow and see the money has left your account. So we as customers, we don't think of apps as products. For us, those are channels, touch points with a larger product. Actually, in the end, it's very easy to prove that an app is not a product. Just put your app on an airplane mode and try to make a wire transfer. Will not work because the app needs the backend of the bank to do this. So the banking of the bank and whatever there is in the bank, plus the app, plus the network, it is more of a product. So those high-level archetypes, they understand the product is broader than the small things, and they kind of talk to customers, try to understand broader product definition, what it's called also in less, and then they create teams around those broader product definitions. You know, you at a higher level, say B2 or B3, you might not have anymore an iOS app. iOS is just a skill. It's a component that you need to know. But essentially, you might want a lot of teams to be able to put features on web and iOS and Android at the same time, because they understand the product is broader than just the channel. So that's one characteristic of what you might experience at the high level.
Yeah, another characteristic, because we're moving in a larger space of understanding the customer domain, we can start measuring more valuable outcomes. If a group of teams or an organizational unit that really works directly on those components that together, like Alexei was saying, with the app and the backend, to give me an awesome experience for money transfers, I don't know. But then, you know, then they can be measured on how happy the customer is with that, transferring that money. While at the lower end, when you're in the lower archetypes, it becomes much more difficult to understand how much of a team effort has been contributing to that high level customer experience, right? So the lower you go, the harder it is to measure the impact.
Yes, like you probably saw this as we did, like you go to sprint reviews of Scrum teams, and there'll be like one Scrum team sitting in a room talking to their product owner, you know, and what they will be describing, velocity, story points, number of bugs, and then we'll just close the sprint in Jira and open up a new sprint, and they're done. And you have 20 other sprint reviews happening at the same time at other small rooms or parallel Zoom meetings. So nobody is actually talking about the outcome. Outcomes being discussed in other rooms where not even product owners are invited because stakeholders are not getting the outcomes they are paying for. So the higher level archetypes, one practice would be to merge single team things into multi-team events. Like one thing you can easily do without actually reorganizing anything, without actually doing any serious transformation. What you can do, you can just, you know, merge sprint reviews of related team of a single meeting. In all times, you all needed a larger room in the office, but now because a lot of people work remotely, you just need an extended Zoom license and everybody will fit in. And it's not rare that we see now companies do like 100 people, like 20 team sprint reviews together, like company-wide sprint reviews. For us, this will be a sign of this higher level archetypes. Now, imagine you're a stakeholder, Roland. What
Yeah, I was just
would you
about to
be?
say,
I know.
remember the stakeholder who was seeing the teams as cost centers. Now,
Right.
all of a sudden, they can go to one meeting and there's maybe 5 or 10 teams showing the value that they've created. Now it makes sense to go there to understand what value I'm getting for my money. So this is really combining sprint reviews of separate teams into showing the overall value that has been delivered by the combined teams is much more interesting for the stakeholders to understand, because then we are talking more the customer language instead of the team language. We're closing the product gap by doing this.
And you might still have one team which is more iOS than the others, and another team which is more growth team than a development team. It's fine, but at least you have created that shared environment, shared open space, shared space where those teams can now collaborate and actually see dependencies and maybe even talk to each other. Yeah, so this talking to each other between the teams will be another characteristic of what happens in a higher level archetype. In a low level archetype like A2, A3, when an iOS team needs something from a backend team, they typically create a ticket in Jira and subscribe to it, to receive notifications. Maybe they send their Scrum Master and a Product Owner to talk to that backend team and remind them about the dependency. In a higher level archetypes, we're trying to tear down those invisible walls between the teams. So actually people can actually talk to each other. Maybe a backend developer from one team, an iOS developer from another team can actually have a Zoom call and pair program, and build the whole thing in 1 hour, backend and front end. So that's what we would like to see, more fluidity actually between the teams. You might still have small teams if you like Scrum size teams. People seem to like those, small teams where every team will have its own color of t-shirts, whatever, bonding this creates on a human social level. But the walls are separating.
Yeah.
This is interesting, right? Roland, we've discovered that some time ago. We figure out that whichever solutions we have today, they will solve some problems, but they will inevitably create another problems.
But they're better problems than we had before.
Hopefully better problems. So the agile teams, which have a lot of dependencies that we have now, that solved the initial problem, of single functional people. But since now we have those agile teams, maybe it's time to move on and to solve the next level problems.
Yeah, well, to summarize that, maybe we've created the new silos, and they're called agile, autonomous agile teams. And they think from their point of view, working only on the search feature, life is perfect, because if they're A3, they can deliver whenever they want on search.
It's also very comfortable on the team level, to own an iOS app, to own search, and don't bother with, big objectives. You just do your search thing, your code, you own that repository. Nobody is messing around with your repository. Maybe some other teams will send you occasionally pull requests, which you will not accept, because why would you do this? Why, right? And it's very comforting, but it's also known as local optimization, right? Because it's good only for you, but it actually sub-optimizing the whole system. Yeah. But essentially, it's like the other revolution that we have. It was also very comfortable for backend developers just to sit in one backend department, discuss their backend things, and don't even understand what people have, which problems other people have with their backend. But we essentially put them in cross-functional teams, and now backenders, frontenders, well, they don't have dependencies anymore. If they are in a single agile team, they have a shared work. So maybe the same approach we can apply going to those high-level B and C archetypes. That's the idea.
Yeah. So the new org design, number 3, remember where we came from, now we're moving up to org design number 3, Agile profit centers. The individual, completely on their own, they're like the lonely people floating in the waters on their subboard individually. Look at them go. There it is, the individual worker. I love this image. I don't know where you found it, Alexi, but I just want to be there. Not on the subboard, by the way, but maybe on one of the yachts. So, and above there's this beautiful ship, you know, the yacht, and there's people collaborating together to make the boat sail, and they're all happy, you know. But then there's this group, and maybe that's for some teams who are maybe struggling a little bit with a couple of things, and they don't know everything yet, and they need a little bit of help. Well, that's great, because in one of these flotillas, people help each other out, and they still move as a group towards a new destination.
Yeah, so this picture is wonderful because it actually illustrates this 3 org designs that we've been discussing, and actually shows the difference, right? In a SAP, well, you probably cannot travel across the Atlantics with one yacht. Well, maybe if you are very lucky, but with a flotilla, you probably can do this. Maybe not all the boats will make it, but well, you can take, you know, people.
Oh, that's a bit of a sad story.
Well, you can still make it as a group of teams, right? And then you'll have to share the resources.
Yeah.
You have to share water, food, diesel, whatever there is. So our goal of Org Topologies is twofold. One goal is to just let people be thoughtful about the org designs. If they are creating more component teams, if they are okay having more autonomous individual agile teams, that's fine, as long as they understand what they're building. A lot of companies, a lot of managers are not experts in org development and org design. So one goal, one mission of Org Topologies is just to have more thoughtful conversation. But another goal of Org Topologies, and it's more of our hidden agenda with Roland, so maybe I should not share it anywhere, so please don't share it, guys, is to help companies, you know, create this broader constellations. It doesn't mean everybody is doing everything, but we have this idea of a team of teams, you know, and it's not that we have invented. That's what we see happening in the industry with the methods like class, fast. You can also create them, I guess, with Team Topologies, unFix, if you are skillful and creative. There will be, our estimate that in the next 5 years or so, there will be more and more experiments in the companies how to combine teams to actually drive more impacts.
Because we get more knowledgeable, we've got some experience from the past years already. We've got all these frameworks, and now we can take the next step. I don't call it a hidden.
Yeah,
and it's not a hidden agenda, but we want people to create ownership of their own destiny.
Right, and it's also adding more autonomous, because agile teams at some point stop adding any value, so you need to change their paradigm.
Yeah.
Okay, so several things that you might want to know about this high-level archetype. What we discovered is that they typically build around some kind of a business need. So it's a outward in scaling. You don't start with a team or iOS app or a technology. You start with a business need. Maybe there's this business department like loans in a bank or private banking, right? And there are stakeholders with budget, with profit and loss, P&L ownership, and they know they need to invest in some kind of a product software development. And they believe they need maybe 10 teams to work together to actually implement some software that will enable their business model. So we're thinking from outside in. What's the objective? What's the goal? How much money we need? Okay, we need this much of a product. We need this many teams. And now you form this flotilla where there are business stakeholders with profit and loss accountability in the middle, and they create teams and they can decide how many teams they need. And now there's no much separation between business and IT. They all kind of belong to one unit. You can call it a domain, a tribe, a product group, a requirement area. There are many different names in the market about those constellations, but not every time you have a domain or a value area, you are actually this higher archetype. I will clarify this in a few minutes. And then you have this number of teams, but because those teams share the shared business objectives of this whole unit, maybe people are not being locked into, oh, that's my component, that's your component. Hopefully they can share work, and hopefully every team can build iOS, Android, web. Actually, with Copilot, GPT technology, you can learn a lot of things way easier, and it also will improve in the next 5 years very much rapidly. And now you have a culture where teams follow work, not the work follow teams, but teams follow work. So whichever new business objectives you are discovering as a basically small business within a larger company, that needs to be researched, learned, and done by the teams. So the teams will be owning the whole domain, share these objectives, and will learn and expand beyond what they currently know.
So what does it look like?
It actually looks just people working.
Just like this, people, and they work, but there's no, well, yeah. So sometimes when you show this picture to people who don't know what we're talking about, well, it's just people at work, but they don't sit behind their desks like really isolated. They don't, so they're not definitely, they don't look like why, they look like they're communicating together, and it's not clear who is belonging to which team anymore. They really mingle. And you know, remember in the first initial Agile teams, there was this idea, oh wow, this is great because it creates this buzz. People get enthusiastic about their work and they start doing things with sticky notes. It's a little bit the same kind of buzz, but then at a larger scale. It's larger groups of people that really mingle together and have fun in cracking problems and creating value.
Yeah, so this is essentially the third org design that we actually know real companies who are doing that. That's not a fantasy. Talk to us and we will connect you to those companies. They're experimenting. They all are at a different level of that. There's no like you are at B or not in the B. There are more like shades of gray, and you can slowly go from lowest level to the highest level. And we've discovered with Roland, there are at least these 3, 4, 5 different steps organizations can take to go from asynchronous dependency management to more synchronous work.
Yeah, so this is important for everybody who has been hearing us and go like, wow, guys, this is fantastic. But tomorrow morning I will return to my work and there's this huge office with what I've learned, why kind of departments. And I will not be able to just change that. So we know that, okay? Things won't change overnight. But gradually, maybe you can do experiments, and maybe in a lower archetype, you can take one step and try something and then move on from there. Yeah. So this would actually, I mean, Alexei just started to comfort you and to give you peace of mind. It's okay. Rome wasn't built in a day. Let's take small steps and move towards these higher archetypes. At least now we can talk about it and have a visual on where we want to go.
And you can go really fast on this scale. Like, for example, if you do a less flip, you are actually rushing people up the staircase. And well, somebody is going to crash and break his repository, right? You don't have to rush. You can actually go step by step. So we are offering maybe less extreme way of doing things, also slower. I mean, if you can have 50 volunteers in a company and flip them, convert them, you should be able to, don't lose this chance, do it. But we figured a lot of companies will not do this. They will find a lot of arguments why it will fail. So we showing you this, what we call gradual revolution. It's still a revolution, but you can go step by step. So before we show you the 4 steps, a very important statement, which is there on the slide. Lower levels, they are asynchronous dependency management ecosystems. That's where if you have a business objective, which touches several teams. Something needs to be changed in search, something needs to be changed on iOS, something needs to be searched in some other part of a product, and you have those teams assigned to this part of a product. It's very likely that those teams will not be doing this thing at the same day. They will likely not work on Monday on the objective. One team will maybe put it in the next sprint. Another team will say, hey, we're too busy with our roadmap, we're gonna postpone it till the later. One team will actually fight back and they say, why do we have to do it? So typically that thing will be done very much asynchronously. And of course, from a stakeholder point of view, it will be just huge lead times. So very different. In a high level archetypes, you start working synchronously with multiple teams on the same thing. So the step one is basically, well, you have not created that flotilla yet, but you figure out, hey, there's this project cross-cutting multiple teams that essentially we all need to contribute. So maybe these 5 teams were identified that they need to do something for this project. And you could do it in an old way. You can just give every product owner of that team some item to put somewhere in their small backlogs. Or you can put everybody together and say, hey guys, guess what? We have this very important project. That's one of the company's bets. So you cannot, push it away. You really need to work on this. So how about for the next 3 sprints? We try to work together on this. Yeah.
That's step 2, isn't it? Give an overarching goal. And then I've done this at a company where there was this common challenge that they have that had to be resolved before the end of the year. And each team knew, well, they wouldn't be able to resolve it before the end of the year. And then I proposed to just merge all those problems in one backlog and let them work on this overarching goal together.
Yeah.
And to them, that was really feasible because now there was more knowledge to be shared. We did refinements together. And they went like, yeah, now we know we can make it before the end of the year. It's so silly, but well, that's the way it works.
Yeah. So typically it starts on the step 1 with some kind of incidental project, but after they've done it, they're like, oh, actually this time it was way faster to work synchronously, work together. So why don't we actually always have shared goal? And if you ask your stakeholders, they can actually define a shared goal for a bunch of teams because they've been doing this anyways. They have OKRs and whatever up there. So in step 2, you start having this more permanent goals. And it's not just one project, it now becomes like a continuous effort of trying to learn to work together.
Then you need to do sprint reviews together and all kinds of events together because why? I mean, you're in the same boat, basically. Working together on these common goals. You want to show the value that you've created every sprint you integrate. So that makes sense to have your
and the more you do it, the more you start sharing whatever you have. At some point you will figure out, hey, we have 5 different build servers. Why don't we just have one which builds everything? Maybe you'll have to open up some code so other teams don't need to send pull requests, but rather can do it.
It's inevitably.
Yeah. We're not saying you need to open up the full code base on the day 1, but essentially once the teams will be confident with each other, will be able to mentor each other. I guess some repositories can be opened way sooner than others. And essentially that becomes a shared code base, collaborative environment, single continuous integration for whichever code base you have. Maybe the teams will like to work in a single sprint, single cadence. Maybe they move to a more Kanban way of working where actually they mingle and they decide across the teams who is working on what. There might be different styles, how this shared work is done. But essentially, no matter what you do, which framework you use, you stop seeing walls between the teams. People will start to mingling and fluidly, traveling between the teams, teaching each other. And maybe in 5 years, if you're doing it right, a lot of things will be shared, a lot of knowledge will be shared, a lot of people have expanded their understanding of a product. Now, if you ask them 5 years later, so what is your product? They are not going to say, oh, it's an iOS app. No, it's the whole private banking is a product. And yes, I still need to do some work in an iOS app, but it's just one component. And by the way, 5 other teams know already how to do that change because,
So I'm coming to think while you are telling this story that actually moving up the staircase and going towards these higher archetypes actually makes you get rid of all kinds of local solutions you had for local problems on the lower levels. Maybe you had this, like the example that you gave, a separate build server, or one team was working in a certain part of the repository and they had certain code standards. And now as you go up and you're going to work together, other people are going to look at like, hey, we've got a kind of similar thing, but it's different. That's silly. Let's, unite this. So as you go up, it makes sense to no longer do silly things that were valuable only because you were an isolated team.
Yeah. And of course, if you're gonna show these slides to some of your colleagues tomorrow, they'll be, oh, no, this will not work. And of course, it will not work, right? Something happened with my camera.
It will not work, you said, and it listened to you.
Yeah, the camera actually did not work.
So we think that this an archetype or wherever you're in is sticky, and that's because, well, if you have a team product owner and a team product backlog, the team product owner is not going to say, most of them are not going to say, okay, well, I'll just stop doing my product owner work because I see that there's a need for not so many product owners if we're going to collaborate with 5 teams on one product backlog. So there are current dynamics that keep people where they are and that keep systems where they are. So it's difficult to get people to, well, join and create these bigger, higher archetypes.
Yeah, another common thing you will hear is this developers cognitive load. People cannot know all 5 repositories. They can only know just one. So don't do this to poor developers. They will just explode. Well, it's actually misuse of the term. If I ask you to remember the British Encyclopedia, this is increasing over cognitive load. You will have troubles with that. But we're not asking people to remember all the code in all repositories. We're just asking you, well, maybe this sprint you have to work with these 2 repositories, and next sprint, please open up another one and see how things are done there. And because it's done very gently, and because you as a team can also volunteer to that, and because there are other people in your flotilla who actually know that code, it's just a matter of reading some new code, and developers pretty much can do this. And the more code you read, the better you are as a developer, I guess, the better you understand the system. So if you do it very carefully, really slowly, and you use volunteering and you don't push people too far, actually they will be all right, and they'll be very thankful because they'll actually now know how the system works, not just the search repository or a search module. And there are other fears, but they are more, mechanical. How do you do large meetings? Well, you don't just make one person talk for an hour in front of 100 people, like we actually do it now with Roland. You actually put people into breakout rooms, and you just run parallel simultaneous workshops where different rooms discuss different things that people find important.
Yeah, but start small, let people experience and do it as an experiment to try, and always introduce. My experience is I introduce those practices of the higher archetypes in lower archetypes when there is a need. If there is a need for change, if there is a reason why we need to have a solution, then try to look beyond the regular solutions that are, for instance, more coordination or whatever, and see if there is a solution that comes from practices that are used in the higher archetypes, because that will help you to really move gradually your organization to get used to work in those higher levels.
Yeah, and of course there will be things that will not work because there are already things that are not working in your company. So there always will be fears and things that go wrong. But you know, this is with every change. If you can focus on long-term benefits of
Yeah.
maybe jogging every morning, of course it's painful, it's cold, you need to buy new sneakers once in a while. But if you focus on the benefits, like imagine how cool it is when business and IT work as one. There's no more contract game. There's no more fake deadlines. There's no more fake pressure put on developers. You know, they just work together. And at refinement meetings, developers talk to business people and they learn domain. And you invite, you know, users, customers to sprint reviews. And it's fantastic. It also creates radical transparency, and you don't need special alignment meetings. Maybe you don't need any OKRs or any other things on top, because essentially if you use Scrum maybe for these 5-10 teams together, there's enough transparency, there's enough inspection and adaptation to steer that development. So essentially your processes, your company becomes simpler, like in the example of Obamacare. You just simplify, descale your organization, essentially just making people talk to each other and learn and solve the problems at hand. We also figure out when you do this, when you allow teams to open new repositories once in a while, they will go like, oh, this repository does something weird. They use this weird scripting language to deploy. Why? All other repositories use that technology to deploy. So why don't we, you know, standardize things and simplify things? Because of course, if every repository does things differently, your cognitive load is way higher. That's why, and every developer understands that. That's why they say, why don't we impose standards? Why don't we create a community of, you know, continuous deployment and make sure all repositories are being built and deployed in the same manner? And well, this is a dream of any manager. Before manager has been trying for years to impose some standards top down. Now engineers are setting themselves standards. Wow, just immense magic. Some more benefits if that was not enough, because now you can reuse and learn code from other repositories. Likely you will discover there are 5 functions in different repositories. They do the same thing. They do conversion from USD to euros. And well, now what you do, you will extract it to a shared library, and essentially you descale, you make your code base look better, you write some tests and make sure, you know, you keep improving. So the more code you read, the more code you own as a developer, the more code you treat like yours, the more caring you'll be showing to your code. And essentially it will improve not just code, it will also improve the customer experience. Have you guys used products where you can actually see this part of a product is owned by one team and that part of a product is owned by another team?
Oh, Alexa, remember how we struggled the last week with Wix, and the different components in Wix were definitely developed by different teams. One doesn't.
100%. If people from Wix are watching this recording, we're
Please,
gonna buy you a bottle of wine.
you
If
guys are in the lower
confirm
archetypes for
this.
sure.
Like we're using events, which is for trainings, and we use video course module, which is for trainings but with videos. And user experience is completely different. In events, you can have like multiple prices. In video courses, you cannot.
How about an invoice with VAT? Not supported.
In events, you can have VAT. In video courses, why? I can guarantee everybody they have different product owners,
Absolutely.
different backlogs, different teams. They don't even talk to each other. They don't even know those teams exist. They just focus on the thing. So when you actually say your product is not video courses, your product is not events, your product is to let people, you know, sell whatever services they can sell with Wix. Now maybe you start talking about shared seamless customer experience, and then you will, you know, at least talk between, I mean, UX people between those teams at least will have to talk to each other and create some joint customer journeys and stuff.
Alexei, I think it's time for another commercial message before we go to the question.
Commercial message, please, by our...
Warning, commercial message ahead!
Yes, we will be happy to see you in our course. There's about 3 hours of videos we are putting live. You guys have a discount which is only till the end of the week. So people who are watching this in a recording, sorry that it probably has been expired already for you, but nevertheless, we would love to see you in our course. There's a lot of things that we can tell you more, but we just limited on time with time. And if you don't don't believe in Org Topologies, you don't like our jokes, you don't like video courses, that's fine. But essentially, we want you to think: do you, like in your company, do you understand where you're going? Can you just get together and try to envision, the company of your dream? How your company will look like in 3 years? Will it have just more teams and more problems? Or maybe you actually start experimenting with some new paradigms. And we actually would like to encourage you to experiment with something new, well, just because we can do it. And it's fun to try new things and be creative. So that's about it for today. It was a Designing Agile Ecosystem, a fancy name for good old Agile coaching, I guess, but at the level of whole product and many teams. Roland Flem, Alexei Krivitsky, and we can probably spend a few minutes on Q&A, which will not be enough to answer a lot of questions. But here we are for you.
Actually, when we mingle it more, it's Rolex Fleminsky.
Exactly. Rolex, I like it.
Sounds expensive.
So we're gonna share with you, Bogdan, the slides, and you can share with the guys. No problem with that. Anything we can do for you guys, or just
any questions?
Leave you alone and let you think of this? It's also an option.
For I still had a remark in the chat talking about Tesla, for instance.
Oh.
Joe DX. I don't know if you guys ever heard of that. Joe Justice, he worked there, and he's sharing his experience on what was happening there. And well, it's actually a very low bureaucracy-driven organization where they give a lot of autonomy to groups of people to fix certain problems. So, and yes, of course, that really smells or looks or sounds like a higher archetype. But to be quite honest, I would have to be in there and learn a little bit more about it to really understand how to map that, because we've been fooled before where we were introduced to Renan Hoi, what is used in this Chinese factory creating fridges and all that, Haier they're called. And we found out that actually that also is a high-performance organization that looks from the outside like extremely adaptive and extremely agile, but it's not agile. They fix things again in a different way with Y-level teams. So it's also brilliant and smart the way they do it, but we would maybe not consider this to be higher archetypes. So it's not always that easy to pinpoint where organizational designs live.
Right. We have a lot of things on our website. You can download the primer. There will be a PDF with some explanation of the maps, way better than we've done now. You can have it as a PDF. Well, we write and analyze a lot of different methods like fast, less, Spotify, empowered product teams, team topologies. We write case studies. We have a mirror template now, which you can use to actually map not on the paper, but in Mira. We have a wonderful Slack community. Feel free to join our Slack, and we can continue talking to you on that.
Yes. So this is a call to action. If you are Igor, 1 second. If you decide to download that Miro, and if you're going to discuss stuff at work, and you have feedback for us, like how it went, please, 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 pretty, please, join our Slack, share your stuff, let's communicate about this because we need it. We need to, you know, get better at what we do and learn from you guys. And then, you know, ultimately, if it's really valuable, we will reward you. You know, look at the champions that we have already. Those are people who picked up on our stuff and they're spreading the word. And we honor those people by giving them, you know, the credits for what they do on our website. So that would be good for your CV or, you know, profile as well. So let's help each other.
Yeah,
Now,
we have these 20 people now, or 10ish people who actually use Org Topologies, and we talk with them. They help us to improve this idea. We call them champions. We give them a lot of extended mirror boards and a lot of bonuses. So feel free to join us. Igor, good to see you.
Yeah,
Old friend.
hi everyone. Was interesting, you know.
It's not the first time
presentation.
It's not the first time you're listening to this, right?
This one is first time I was listening for Team Topologies, and now it's organization topologies. So yeah, it's always something new. But I was on less basics that was delivered by you and your colleagues. So what I want to ask, could you share maybe some good books to start this, you know, to get more details on this topic? And what can you say about difference of team topologies, organization topologies, and organizational structure?
A lot of questions.
Yeah.
Well, further reading and more information, please go to the website.
Yeah, there's no book on Org Topologies yet.
No.
We still yet to write one, but we are standing on the shoulders of the giants. The large-scale Scrum books, the books on systems thinking, the books on org design, different people's classes. Like next week, we go to Warsaw to learn from our educator, Jürgen de Smet. He's going to teach a less class, and it will be my 8th class from different trainers on less. So there are a lot of people who we learn from. That's not something we invented just the map, but the ideas basically they're out there. I would suggest joining the less community and attending some less related classes, because that's maybe the most extreme, the fastest way, the elevator to the BAC levels, the less thing. It might be scary, it might not be suitable for a lot of teams because they require a lot of real deep change. But if your company is ready, this is just an elevator. And I was lucky to help several companies actually adopt less, and it's just fantastic how much people learn and how happier teams and customer stakeholders become. Now, your second part of the question is on team topologies. Well, team topology to me is just like Lego bricks, right? Well, what they did, they say you can have a stream align team, you can have a component team, you can have a platform team, you can have an enable team. Like, yeah, we had them before team topologies. Maybe it's good to have those names. But essentially just Lego bricks. And you cannot say we do team topologies because you cannot do Lego. You can build something with a Lego. You can be building an airplane with a Lego. This I understand. So to me, these unFix, team topologies, these do-it-yourself DIY methods out there, they are fine, but you still need to have a blueprint of what you're building.
Exactly.
Are you building an airplane or a bus or a toy or something else? And they are not good at giving you a vision what to build.
I think they're very complementary. I mean, it's fine if you see that team topologies is beneficial for your organization because maybe you can keep the platform group where they are, you know, and that's very handy. Otherwise, change will become too painful. Fine. But where are you going on a broader scale? What's your next step? Now, understanding how complex your platform teams are, you can map them on the map and then really have a good understanding how the remainder parts of your organization, you know, the other team types that you have there, are collaborating together in order to deliver value. So I think we are complementary. We shouldn't be against anything.
We're not against any frameworks. We are for thinking. We actually have this exercise in our class where we ask people to actually to map team topologies on the Org Topologies map, just to have an answer for themselves. Is it helping you to create high level archetypes or not? So you can actually map anything. And again, this is just Lego bricks. The question is, do you have skills and do you know what you're building? And we believe they should be a method like Org Topologies or something else, which gives you direction.
Yeah.
And Bogdan said in the beginning, we are less friendly. It's not because like less is just a better framework. Less is more than a framework. It gives you this direction, and that's why we like it. So please, you know, if you look for frameworks and stuff, look for the ones that don't just describe you the parts, but also give you a direction. Like, what is the company of the future that you are able to create with that? I'm not sure which company of the future you can create with SAFe. I have no idea. I don't understand. It's just a number of Lego bricks. At Team Topologies, there's also no clear vision. We give this feedback to the authors. We're speaking to them, and hopefully they will rewrite the book. And there will be Team Topologies 2.0, maybe, I hope, at some point, where they are much clearer that you need to have more stream-aligned teams and avoid all other kinds of teams. At least this will be a A3 archetype on Org Topologies map. I think we are just out of the time box, and because we are Scrummers, we respect the time boxes very much. And we are minus 3 minutes in the time box.
Just want to clarify, you mentioned less trainings, that you come from time to time different trainers.
Yeah.
You're talking about practitioner one?
Yeah,
or,
I'm talking about CLP, Certified Less Practitioner with Craig Larman, Baswodi, Jürgen de Smet. I mean, there are a lot of bright guys. You can learn so much.
Yeah, but we are also bright guys. And if you want, you can join our COTP classes that we do. 2 days of physical training on org design and how to map stuff. That's also an option. I mean, you don't have to, you can go to a less class too.
Bogdan, a final word?
Yes, kick us out.
No, come on, that never. It was pleasure listening to you, something to probably digest. I also invite folks to join the other Slack community as well. So Org Topology Slack community, our Slack community of Scrum Wednesdays, wherever you want to talk about any of the topics. Thank you very much. It was the pleasure having you on board, Rolex, this time around.
Rolex.
Thanks for having us.
We'll see each other in 2 weeks when we'll have our friend Ognian discuss some of the game theory for the product management and how we can benefit from learning some of that. So
sounds interesting.
Ognian, well, send him our regards.
We'll do so. Once again, thanks a lot. See you around, and expect to have this video up till the end of the week somewhere online.
Cool. Thank you, guys. All the best. Ciao.